Hello, America. Here's the one thing. That's going to cause a lot of problems. The government's irresponsible spending is turning us into slaves. You might well literally lock us into chains, at least our children. USA Today, I don't know if you saw the front page of the paper today. The paper! It reported today that if you add up all of the federal debt that each American household now owes $546,668. That is up 12%, or $55,000 from last year. What's the date? That's 4 times what each U.S. household owes in car loans and credit cards, mortgages, and all other debt combined. Keep in mind, that's the happy estimate. You know, that's if everything just keeps going as smoothly as it is right now. What does that number look like if you're going to take an approach that's not so sunshine and lollipops? They say that we can just pay all this stuff. Don't worry about it. We're going to grow our way out of this. And you know what? We'll just tax that top 1 or maybe 5 or maybe 15, 25%. To give you an idea of how much money this is that we're now on the hook for, there are 3 possible options to pay this off. If I took every single cent of GDP for this entire year and the next 3 years, we could pay it off. Take 54% of all corporate revenues and all of the wages and salaries for the next 10 years. So nobody makes anything. Got it? Or option 3, take 2 out of every $3 of all the wages and salaries paid U.S. residents over the next 10 years. And remember, things could get worse if the government wants to follow through with this giant progressive plan for health care spending and everything else. There's talk of a national sales tax. This is a spooky thing. This isn't a sales tax. Like, you ring it up, you'll never see this tax. It's called a VAT tax. It's hidden. And when they implemented it in Europe, that's when spending went out of control because you never see it. Prices just rise 25% on everything. 25% on everything you buy. I know a lot of people have compared me to Howard Beale. You know, the guy from Network. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it. But last night, if you were watching this program, you might think the guy who played Coach on ABC, Craig T. Nelson, is better suited for that role. Watch this.
I'm not going to pay any more money. What these people are asking me to do.
You're seriously saying I'm not going to? You're not?
No, I'm asking Glenn Beck to promote this. I'm saying it personally, but I'm asking you.
Know. Are you saying you personally won't pay income tax anymore?
I'm really thinking about it, Glenn, because as a fiscally responsible grandfather, there are programs that they're asking me to fund that I refuse to fund.
You know, I have to tell you,
if the veterans coming back are not getting what they deserve, those people that have served, that put themselves in harm's way, if my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchild, who's about to be here, thank you, grandson, is not going to be educated properly, then I'm through with it.
I want to be clear on one thing. I am not advocating that people should not pay their income tax. This is a spooky area, but I think he connected with an awful lot of people last night. But one Craig T. Nelson or Wesley Snipes is not going to send a message. You know, they're just 2 out of 100,000 tax evaders in prisons today. Halfway homes are under house arrest. But what if, for argument's sake, 1 million Americans intentionally did not pay their taxes? Right now, the IRS is already able to go through over 150 million tax returns and punish those, believe me, harshly, who fail to pay, their income tax. They fine them between 5 and 25%. They'll collect about $30 billion in back taxes. And going forward, the Obama administration is preparing. They are devoting an additional $400 million of your money to get more money from you. And 800 people are being added to the rolls of the IRS to catch tax cheats. Still, most actual tax evaders don't wind up in jail. I think they usually end up as nominees for Obama's cabinet, but maybe that's a different show. Let's just say 1 million people don't pay, not because they're cheats, but because they believe the principles that we were founded on have been violated, and they think this is wrong, and they try to do something that they think is the only thing they can. put aside the fact that America's 2.3 million federal, state, and local prisons are already overcrowded. They are packed, 36% beyond their rated capacity, overcrowded to the maximum. If you want to send these million people to minimum security, 192-bed prison, you can house them for a meager $30 billion every year. Or if you want to grab those tax cheats, since they're probably most likely all just hacks for the GOP, right-wing Tea Party goers, extremists, you know, you better put them in a maximum security prison. That's a 500-bed prison. That'll cost you $100 billion every year. All in all, it's probably not worth the government's time to toss you in jail, but they got to do something. Otherwise, they're in trouble, and we're going to be locked in shackles. You know, I think there's probably a better role model for coach than Howard Beale. Might be Gandhi. Gandhi said, withholding payment of taxes is one of the quickest methods of overthrowing a government. And it makes common sense. Starving them out of trillions of your hard-earned dollars would literally put them out of business. But do Americans want to do that? Do Americans who want to do that have the guts to follow Gandhi's example in order to save children, our grandchildren, our great-great-great-great-grandchildren from all of this insane debt? Here is psychiatrist and Fox News contributor Dr. Keith Abloh. Keith, last night I went home and we TiVoed the show, and I said, honey, I want you to watch part of the show, because she never watches. And she is so done with being impressed by me. And so we turn on the TV.
I can't believe that.
And so we're sitting at the TV.
Not
and
you.
I was sitting on this chair, and she was actually in front of me. And I watched her as she was watching. And he started in, and he said, you know, my grandchildren, and I'm tired of it. When these people aren't, you know, they're not educating, they're not taking care of things, they're bailing people out. My wife, and she usually just, again, she kind of watches my show like, what else is on? And so she was watching, and I watched her, and she was listening to him. I do. And she was listening, and she was shaking her head like, I think this guy is saying things that people are connecting with. What is it?
There's no question about it. Here's what he's doing. First of all, if you watch the clips, if you saw the show, he's not a slave to the medium. Craig T. Nelson spoke to you man to man. He was able to talk about your mannerisms in a very human way. He made a joke about your desk. He's a human being. But here's why he really connects. Because you've got a guy who's sincere, and you could hear it when he said he has a great-grandchild on the way. He cares about the legacy that's being left for his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. He's an older fellow now, you know, not ancient, but an older fellow. And he cares that there not be fictional chapters put in the stories of his grandkids. Because let me tell you, you start writing fiction into the chapters of this country, and ultimately what comes out the other end is there's got to be terrible pain. You can't avoid pain. You got to get to the truth. So how are people going to pay for this down the road? He doesn't want to see that laid at the doorsteps of his great-grandchildren, and lots of Americans don't.
Yeah, I mean, I really would. I would, if I had a responsible government and they said, look, we'll pay all of this off, I would pay whatever we had to pay. I would work I'd work at Wendy's for the rest of my life to do it so my kids could be free. This guy is connecting. We did a search for anybody that was talking about this on the blogs, and it's everywhere on the internet. Let me just give you some of the blog postings, and you tell me what you think this means. Here's the first one. I'm not exactly a revolutionary. Don't tell anyone. I don't even own a gun. But these days, I'm feeling ready to risk my life, fortune, and freedom to restore some semblance of freedom to this piece of ground that we've all been living on. It's way past time to stand up. Next one. If enough people didn't pay taxes, it would work. There is a prison overpopulation problem, so the politicians would be in a position of deciding to release tax evaders or a rapist or a murderer. And one more. Wondering what this guy is doing. Don't recognize what's motivating him? It's called leadership, getting out in front and making an example of oneself. Well done, Coach. More, please.